The world is experiencing crash in price of oil. What does this mean for Nigeria?
What it means for Nigeria is that Nigeria, we have to evaluate the governance structure that we have that has largely mismanaged our resources in the past and have a paradigm shift. When we talk about the oil and gas, Nigeria remains the largest producer in Africa. In fact, Nigeria has the largest deposit of proven gas in Africa, and I believe the 9th largest in the world. And talking about these resources that God has given us, the exploration for oil in Nigeria started as far back as 1903. Then we had an enhanced effort around 1935. In 1956, oil was discovered in commercial quantity in Oloibiri in the modern-day Niger Delta region. In 1958, we started to also export oil, to sell oil. And I know that Shell BP started the construction of a refinery in Nigeria. Between 1963 and 1965, it was commissioned in 1965. And as of today, we have at least 4 refineries in Nigeria that are almost moribund. And the facts of the mismanagement is that there is a recent report that my great nation spent 11 trillion naira on fuel subsidy in 6 years. So, and we don't have the developmental evidence that we should have as an oil-producing nation, and that is so sad. So if right now we are experiencing a downturn in the oil global market, I think we should be blamed for that, because there have been several warnings in the past that someday oil may not take the front lead. And I can let you know in comparison that there are other regions of the world that maximize their oil potential. You talk about the United Arab Emirates. They also have oil. And through diligence and well-meaning leadership, the founder of the modern UAE, Sheikh Zayed, decided to spend the oil money to develop that region. And today, that region is a symbol of prosperity. So now we have a lot to do by changing the governance system that has grossly mismanaged the opportunities we have, not just in the oil sector, even in the agricultural sector. Recall that before we discovered oil, agric was the mainstay of our economy. And after the discovery of oil, we pushed that to the background. Perhaps we are now being forced to return to that enormous source of revenue. But having said that, development does not just rest on revenue, but on how you engage your revenue. And those are some of the challenges that we have now.
All right, Mr. Jide, considering that our budget is hinged on oil, would you recommend a review of 2020 budget?
The budget is already being reviewed because the reality is there for us. Where are we going to get the resources? And don't forget that a percentage of that budget was even meant to service indebtedness, and a huge percentage of it also to go into recurrent expenditure. So we have failed to spend so much on capital expenditure that can activate a vibrant economy. So right now we have a vulnerable economy. And if you look at this COVID-19 negative impact on the economy, you look at the nations that are standing, you talk about Saudi Arabia, you talk about Russia, you talk about America. These are huge oil producers that have used their resources effectively so they can cushion the impact of the COVID-19 on the oil economy. And you look at countries like Ecuador, like Venezuela, like Mexico, they are really groaning and they are really in serious trouble, But then, the Chinese have a saying that the best time to have planted a tree was 20 years ago, the next best time is now. And maybe now we should learn from some other countries. If you look at Singapore, for instance, Singapore was established by Raffles in 1819, just a group of fishermen fishermen, that the Malays and some Chinese that came together. In 1965, Singapore was pushed out of Malaysia, and Singapore was fortunate to have Lee Kuan Yew as the leader. And look at what Lee Kuan Yew has done with Singapore, transforming that little fishing settlement with practically little or no natural resources to what you can call one of the capitals of prosperity in the world. And he embarked on 5 major approaches that we may also recommend for our government if they want to change at all. He embarked on pragmatic leadership. And pragmatic leadership is the practical leadership that brings about a change for the maximum benefit of the maximum people. And that we embrace the practical issues on ground. For example, this COVID-19, some people are beginning to talk about vaccines. We may start spending so much on vaccines. Pragmatic leadership means you find your own local remedy for the problems you have. So what stops us from reviving our refineries? And we stop wasting the huge amount we spend on importing fuel, and we talk about under-recovery and stuff like that. Then the next thing Lee Kuan Yew did was to put in place an effective bureaucracy, a system that was fluent, that enabled business transactions to flow fluently. And the next thing he did was to control corruption. He did a lot on ensuring that corruption was minimized in Singapore. And that tradition is still in place today. And if you look at Section 15, subsection 5 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, it says that the government, the state has the obligation of abolishing corruption and abuse of office. How well have we done as a nation to deal with corruption? And the next thing he did was to allow the best of brains to drive the governance process, not necessarily because you are from one area, tribe, and all those sentiments. No. And in connection with that, he invested so much in education, and he put in place a competitive compensation, which also added to the discouragement of corruption. And finally, talking about these 5 elements in this capsule, he also learned from other nations that have developed. And I can tell you that a higher level of prosperity is when you attract prosperity into your region. So the great brands in the world can now trust Singapore enough as an attractive business center, and they bring wealth into Singapore. As of today, out of the 4 little Asian dragons, like they call them, Singapore is the greatest success story. It's about the best place to live and work in the world right now. And that's the story of a nation that became independent in 1965. We became independent politically in 1960, became a republic in 1963. And Lee Kuan Yew came to Nigeria, came to West Africa to consult with fellow poor nations then on how to develop. But when he saw our attitude, the man left us alone and embarked on isolationism.
All right, Mr. Jide, you made mention of corruption. How would you rate this present administration fighting corruption?
In theory, this administration has really tried, but in practical, this administration has failed in fighting corruption, and we have reports to confirm that. And I'm sure you also have reports to confirm that. It's just unfortunate that we are in a country where you cannot unearth some of these issues, or maybe when another regime comes, you'll be amazed at the level of corruption that is still subsisting in this country. If the corruption tempo has not been sustained, even made worse, by now we should have made recorded tremendous achievement in migrating from being the capital of poverty. But look at this COVID-19. In less than 2 months of a lockdown, you can see the manifestation of massive poverty and restiveness that we have. And the next question you want to ask is that, have we been able to deal with corruption? Because there are symptoms you see in the society to confirm that you have dealt with corruption. And again, I'm worried that as I speak to you now, the total indebtedness of my country is in the region of about 25.7 trillion naira. What have we done with this money? Even the Abacha load that the country recovered Have we been able to account for it? So for me, as an individual, my personal opinion, I own it. I doubt if we are fighting corruption.
All right, Mr. Jide, diversification is something governments in Nigeria don't take serious. How would this affect us as a nation?
Definitely, it will deepen our level of poverty. Now, the government has done well by deciding to diversify. But let's try and evaluate it. In business, you talk about SWOT analysis, your strengths, your weakness, your opportunities, and your threats. Let's go into agriculture, the agroeconomy. And we started planting, farmers are ready. And the same decision that we should amplify got confronted by haters that go to kill, to destroy. So what kind of diversification is that? You see, and this COVID-19 has come to really blow up some issues. For example, we were reading about the reports of how well we are doing in producing rice, and we were commending. We all love success. But where is the rice we are producing? Where is the local rice now to feed, to give out as palliative to people who are suffering? All right? And reportedly, the federal government, in her goodwill, ordered that about 150 trucks of rice, imported rice, that the government seized through the customs from importers should be distributed as palliative. Where are the local rights, my brother, if I may ask? These are realistic things. So we need to get back. If we are serious, the government should go and deal with these herdsmen that are killing. When you want to diversify, you diversify effectively. We cannot be deceiving ourselves. We still have banditry in this country, Boko Haram still killing. And you saw the embarrassment of what happened in Chad Republic, how the Chadian president himself led the troops to bombard Boko Haram. Now they are returning to Nigeria. So who is fooling who? And we have been saying it. We love this regime. I love my amiable president. I love those who are working with him. For history is taking the record. And the characteristics of this regime will be recorded. And opportunities are there to be on the golden side of this. So it's and the essence of having a government is to regulate the affairs of the nation. And if you look from the state of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, it talks about how our resources should be harnessed to deliver maximum happiness, welfare to the people, how we should have sustainable development, how we should have affordable housing, affordable food, care of the old, reasonable minimum living wage, for all citizens. They are there in our Constitution. It's just that unfortunately you cannot sue the government in respect of that chapter 2 of the Constitution. So these things are there. But what are the realities that we have? Look at Zamfara State. Zamfara State has a gold deposit that can give that state $2 billion annually. But if we lost about 535 billion naira to illegal mining, and as I speak with you, illegal mining is still going on there. So who do we blame? God has given us resources, but we need resourceful management to benefit from the resources.
COVID-19, with the current reality and outbreak of coronavirus, what is the way forward for Nigeria?
The way forward is to strengthen your structure. Obviously, the world is in disarray. Even those who are standing are now kneeling down. And so you can imagine that it's the grace of God that has sustained us. So we thank God that we don't have a pandemic. We have not even recorded epidemic in Nigeria because the total number of those who have died really less than 30, and we condole with all the families affected. So we need a very sound medical facility. We need to look inwards rather than depending on vaccines and medications that are imported into Nigeria. Let's embark on our local solutions. Then we need to work on infrastructure. Electricity is key. If we have industrialized this nation and we can provide jobs for people who can stay at home without even burdening the government so much, then we need a sound welfare system, a safety net for the people. Let me use the example of the United States of America. It will amaze you that for every adult in America, the COVID-19 stimulus is $1,200.
That's right. That's right.
For a child, $500. And for those who are unemployed and those who file for unemployment, $600 per week. And you multiply that by 4 weeks. So you will want to be in that society. I heard from somebody who is not even vulnerable by our own definition. I think he works in a refinery, but because he's a citizen of America, he got the alert of $1,200. And if you try to exchange that with 380, that's the exchange rate in Nigeria now, in Naira terms, that's almost $500,000. My brother, if I have that, I would stay at home for 4 months. Democracy is the government of the people, by the people, and for the people.
Right.
Let's generate the good. Let's come together. Let's be united. Let's stop all this regional muscle flexing. And by the way, let's learn from some countries that have made progress in the world. You hear of the United Kingdom. You hear of the United Arab Emirates. You hear of the United States of America. So why don't we have a United States of Nigeria? All right? And it's possible because some of us are beginning to consider the next leadership. And God will make way for us.
Finally, Mr. Jide,
Yes.
following the extension of the lockdown, there has been an increase in unrest in Lagos. Would you say the government should, because of this, leave the extension?
The government will need a lot of wisdom now. You see, it's not as if people are not willing to stay at home. So I just gave you an example now. I stay at home. I cannot feed myself, feed my wife, attend to my children, no electricity. I'm threatened. Let's even leave that aside. I may choose to fast and persuade my family members to fast for 50, 100 days. But what about the insecurity? Armed robbers taking livelihood, bombarding environments, and you now find landlords becoming vigilante. And Section 14, subsection 2 of the Nigerian Constitution, 1999 as amended, stipulates that the security and the welfare of the people shall be the primary purpose of government. And if there are two elements that COVID-19 has come to test in our side, it is the security and the welfare of the people. And if I ask you, how well have we attended to this? It's a far cry from what should be. In fact, reportedly, when my president addressed the nation, he told us that the palliative debt will be extended from the 1,600 to 2,600 households. All right. That is, and when you talk about households, or is it 1.6 to 2.6? We talked about, let's even say 4 in a family, in a population of 200 million. How far can that go? Even people are calling for accountability in how the palliatives are distributed. So you see, recently also, the government promised, they were saying that there will be 2 months free electricity as palliative. That is still being discussed. And the lockdown is almost over. So when you look at the hardship and the fact that the economy has been locked down, which is very negative, and I mean that can generate serious consequences, then you will consider reopening the business space like Ghana is doing, like some countries of the world are doing, even China where it all started. But then the governors are saying that they will prevent interstate movement. And that tells us that the true federalism we are advocating, possibly in Nigeria, is states are encouraged to develop their region. We don't have all this interdependence and becoming a burden to the federal government that is already almost incapable of handling some of the challenges of governance. So I think, but I suspect that if you weigh the fact that there may be a civil disobedience, if this lockdown continues, the government may want to adjust and say, okay, you can go out, must wear face masks, and those are beginning to come out, some are beginning to produce face masks. And I must commend the governor of Cross River State, Professor Ben Ayade, who is showing us that local capacity development is important. Ahead of time, he has even mandated the garment factory in Cross River State to mass produce faith and nose masks to people. He has given food to the vulnerable. In fact, amazingly, recently said he will not give rise to the youth. That any youth who is ready to work, to come and apply for work on a salary of 30,000, and that if your problem cannot be solved by 30,000 per month, don't bother to apply at all. Because he will rather teach them to teach than to teach them fish to eat. And he has shown class in managing this COVID-19 crisis. So need to develop local capacity. We need to realize now that let China be China, let America be America. But right now, it's not a positive. It's not a fashionable thing to say you are going to the UK for medical attention. So now attention now. So let's develop Nigeria, and the solutions for the problems of this nation are within this nation. And you can see how the World Health Organization is threatening everybody. And I want to ask a question. Is there anyone apart from God who can love you more than yourself? So if Africa is not developed, it's not the headache, or we are not to blame the Western world for it. If God has given you resources, have the responsibility to maximize your resources to deliver the expected resources. That is the story of Africa. But we hope and pray that post-COVID-19, the new governance mindset will emerge, because it has brought a lot of opportunity, and we will begin to develop Nigeria. And the United Nations has simplified it with the Sustainable Development Goals that was rolled out in 2016, that will be evaluated in year 2030, called the 2030 Agenda. And it's talking about zero tolerance for hunger, zero tolerance for poverty, developing, your environment, and there is room for collaboration. That is the goal 17 of it all, and creating a decent environment. So if we wisely engage on this, we'll come out a stronger nation.
All right. Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Jide.
Thank God, and thank you.